Okay, everybody, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for all of you joining. Thank you for joining Itamar and myself today. We're just wrapping some last things and we'll give some more time for everybody to join. So a few more minutes and we'll be ready to start. Wonderful, great. So I see more people are joining, but I think we'll start on time this morning, at least for me. Itamar, what time is it for you?
Here it's noon, exactly noon in Detroit.
Exactly noon. So from Detroit and Mountain View in California, we are very happy to have everybody and host you on this webinar of Monogoto and Xyte together. Before I go ahead and start and introduce myself and Itamar and talk about the new partnership that we are announcing today, if you do have any question, please take the time to share them with us on our chat, and we'll do our best to address some of those questions at the end of the webinar. But please don't be shy and feel free to ask questions. Wonderful. So without further ado, let's get started. Before we delve in, let's do a quick introduction. So quickly about myself, my name is Omer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Xyte. In a nutshell, Xyte is a full-stack cloud solution for device and hardware manufacturers, enabling them to manage their connected device business end-to-end from the second they connect and cloudify the devices through completely white-labeled RMM, remote monitoring and management for their customers, all the way to introducing new as-a-service and subscription-based models in their process of taking their business model into new service-based and software-based offering. Itamar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Omer. My name is Itamar Kunik. I'm the co-founder and CEO for Monogoto. It's a pleasure to be here. Very quickly, Monogoto handles software-defined connectivity. We are here to help hardware and device manufacturers to embed cellular connectivity into their devices to ensure that they have reliable, secure, and constant communication with their devices and hardware so they can focus on building and selling the best connected device.
Great, thank you, Itamar. And today in our webinar, we'll take the opportunity to cover some of the industry trends that we see. What can we do and help the OEMs in continuous connectivity, and obviously discuss a little bit the partnership between Xyte and Monogoto. I think really what's very unique for Xyte, what's interesting is that we have the pleasure of working with some of the world's most innovative device manufacturers. And one thing that we see really across the board and in any industry is that how these device manufacturers are seeking new ways to develop new and recurring revenue stream based on their actual devices. They already invested millions and billions of dollars, putting them in the market. And as mentioned before, quickly, what's interesting is that we really see that in very, very different industries, all the way from intelligent building, professional audio, video, food and beverage, industrial, of course, silicon, and many, many others. And when I think about device manufacturers that are selling services, subscription, and software, I think the most prominent example is, of course, Apple. Most of us own one or multiple Apple devices. And when I look at my iPhone, what I realize is that this is not longer a phone for the last 15 years or so, but instead it is an enabler. It is a platform for Apple to sell and deliver more services to their customers. And if you just look quickly in Apple's revenue breakout, their services segment just grew over the last 5 years from 15 to 25%. It is the most growing segment for them in their revenue, in the revenues. Another great example is obviously Tesla. I don't know how many of you own a Tesla. Definitely not an iPhone, not a thing, cheaper thing to buy that we all own. But Tesla is the first software-defined vehicle. And when you're buying a Tesla for the first time, one-time fee, it's really where it's all just starting, right? Because after you buy the Tesla, you are offered with the options to buy additional insurance as a service directly from Tesla, for example. You're offered a way to buy a data package. We'll get that together with Monogoto in a second, but essentially to be able to use the media system in the car, you have to subscribe to Tesla data services. And of course, being able to subscribe to the full self-driving features just enable more premium features in your car, which are software defined. Now, while Tesla gross revenue is about $8,000 per car, which is impressive 20% gross margin, it is really just a one-time fee. And these additional services that Tesla enables and offer to their customers enable Tesla to develop recurring services with their customers, recurring revenue stream, and obviously create more stickiness with their customers. And you might think to yourself, or you might ask yourself, well, how come Apple and Tesla are the only ones doing so? And what it turns out that to be able to do that, introduce those recurring revenue streams, they require a very, very robust software stack to enable them. And that's part of the thing that we'd like to cover in this webinar today with you. So today in our webinar, Itamar and I are very much pleased to share some of our insight of these strong market trends with you. And we'll do that through some case studies, which we'll get to in a second, and how device manufacturers across, once again, any industry can leverage continuous device connectivity to remove friction for their customers while setting the devices and managing them, and develop at the same time those new offering. Itamar, anything that you'd like to add from your point?
Yeah, thank you, Omar. I think it's a great summary. Also, one point that I would love to touch is we are experiencing more and more general focus from the OEMs, the manufacturers, the device owners. They put a lot of focus and a lot of attention on the customer journey, the customer experience. Because at the end of the day, if you have a device that the onboarding takes some time, that you need to configure the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the bottom line is that someone has a lesser experience in that point in time. So I think that's a great segue for us to move to the first use case that we want to cover today. And that use case will be digital signage, but digital signage in a way that is belongs inside an enterprise or a company or campus or a facility, not the digital signage on the street where you can just stream your advertisement. This connects to the IT infrastructure. This involves a CIO or the CISO of an enterprise. And just imagine that a company goes and deploys in a facility, in a campus, in an office, multiple digital signage, and now they need to spend multiple weeks just talking with the IT, connecting this hardware into their backend, and making sure that everything plays together with the IT infrastructure, policies, and rules. Whereas the other alternative is that the digital signage comes already with a cellular modem, cellular bundle, cellular package, and cellular connectivity that allows the owners of these devices to remotely connect, configure, and stream without the need to communicate with the IT department or to be involved in complex environmental and configuration procedures. Now, if there is a need, and if you need to onboard to a local Wi-Fi or to another network, once you remotely connect to your device, you can configure it as you see fit. But you have the ability to remotely configure it, remotely connect to it, and understand how it's being used and debug it if there's any. Omer, anything else you want to add on this?
Yeah, I think, well, a couple of things. First of all, personally, I have a warm place in my heart for the professional audio video industry. That's where I grew. And I think one of the reasons why I'm very excited about this digital signage case studies and use cases is, I guess, for two main reasons. The first one is that when you buy a digital signage, when you think about it, what you really want to get is you want to get messages to your campus, to your employees, to your students. You don't really want to buy the device. You want to subscribe to the service, and the devices are enabling this service. And that's why I think as a service model in this specific case makes so much sense. The other thing is that one thing digital signage definitely need is being able to update the content. So it's very much relied on connectivity. And I've been there, and we have some of our customers doing that today. You deploy hundreds or sometimes thousands of displays and digital signage players in a campus. It can be an enterprise campus or a higher education campus. And then you have to go through all the security. And by the time you connect them, it's just another device on the local network, wired or wireless, doesn't matter. But there's so much friction in that. And just think about this alternative as you described it, Itamar, when I just go and just plug in all the players on the display to the power outlet, which obviously does not require the same kind of securities as the enterprise network, and boom, they're in the cloud. I can remotely manage, I can remotely monitor them, and I can constantly push and update new content to those devices. This is a huge removal of friction from the customer, from the system integrator, the custom installers, and so on. I think this is a great one. And so this is one great case study that we developed with one of our customers. I think that another one, and one that I find personally specifically exciting as well, is once again something that is similar to Tesla. So if you're an OEM, if you're a device manufacturer, you invested millions of dollars developing those devices, and you'll see in a second, you sell them for a one-time fee. Things become more competitive, margin going down, the money you make on each device that you sell goes down. And we need to think and find ways to develop more recurring revenue out of these devices. And one of the greatest things is how you could do that by selling data plans. So going back to the Tesla example before, when you buy a Tesla and you get into the car, you have the Tesla experience, right? It's the Tesla software. You can plug your iPhone, you can do Apple Car or Android Car, whatever it is. You have to use Tesla. But to be able to do that, you rely on connectivity. And you have to buy this connectivity directly from Tesla. And when you pay $9.99 a month or whatever it is, it might seem like a much lower amount of money compared to the Tesla itself. But once again, this is recurring, and the gross margin on this new segment, on this new product that Tesla sells, is much higher. So let's take another example. One of our customer, this is a tablet and PC manufacturer, right? And we used to to buy our devices today, laptops and tablets, for a one-time fee. But what this device manufacturer actually does is moving to DaaS, the device as a service. Now, once again, I can sell my entire device as a service, which sometimes can be complex, but what can be in many cases a lot easier is just add additional features to my devices I'm already selling. And one of those great services is global roaming. So if I run a company and I have a workforce of 50 employees, say 20 of them are account executive, and they constantly travel around the world. Instead of buying them devices and now have to get them roaming services whenever they travel to Europe or whatever it is, I can simply subscribe to global roaming powered by Monogoto and Xyte directly from the e-commerce experience of Xyte. And wherever that laptop lands, wherever that account executive takes this laptop with and travel to, will have instant connectivity without the hassle of buying packages, connecting with a local cellular provider, and so on. And getting another great service to your customers, and once again, monetizing off that. And to give you a sense on what that can potentially do to your numbers, so if you look at typical laptop, quite a pricey one at the higher end, another very low end, sells for about $1,000, and with about 5% gross margin of this laptop, the OEM eventually makes about $50 if you do the math. But if that same OEM adds or offer additional services based on that, software services to remotely manage and monitor, and once again have global data roaming, those can sell for a much higher gross margin, and eventually, after several years, make a dramatic impact on the revenue and the top and the bottom line from those services. And maybe to just kind of visualize that, so you get a sense, when I'm selling that laptop, $50, that's all I make, right? If the next time the customer will come and buy again in 3 or 4 or 5 years, I made only those $50 in the first time I sold the device. When I'm moving to recurring, those things turns to pile up and obviously make a much bigger impact in the longer run. Itamar, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's tremendous as an additional revenue stream of recurring revenue, but also, as we mentioned before, you keep in touch with your customer. You have a touch point where you constantly can upsell, you can offer them additional services. But if we look from the other side, if we now discuss the customer journey, let's look at the consistency of the connectivity. As an employer, as an enterprise, you want to make sure that your people, when they travel, the same 20 account executives that you mentioned before, if they now have the hassle that they need to get a local SIM card, to work with a local provider, to onboard to a specific Wi-Fi, that's focus and attention and time that goes away from work. If we want to focus how to make sure that this device brings the journey not only to the customer, but also to the employer or anyone handling the connected device, we want this as consistent as possible. We don't really care if we're currently in Europe or in the US, if this is a country with 2G or with 5G, or maybe this is a private 5G in a campus network. What you want to make sure is that your device, your component, has a consistent level of connectivity, so the experience is much more improved.
Wonderful. So do you want to take maybe another, elaborate a little bit more about the auto vehicle example as well?
So telematics and the automotive industry is very fast growing. And as we can all understand, connectivity is mandatory, right? So first, from regulatory perspective, you've got the electronic loggers, you've got the GPS telematics and tracking hardware. Everything needs to be tracked from speed, location, temperature, etc. Now, there are a few ways to do this. One of them is to be able to work locally with a specific vendor. What it allows you is to have a single SIM card connected to your hardware, and now you can use all the cellular towers of that specific network provider, network operator. When you use the solution discussed today by Xyte and Monogoto, the first thing that you benefit is the fact that you don't need to rely on a single network. This resilient connectivity allows you to jump between multiple networks. So if you're driving in the US, you want to make sure that you can connect to AT&T's towers or T-Mobile towers or US Cellular towers. But if you're down south and you're closer to the Mexican border, you can jump and use Mexican cellular towers from the other side of the border. Because from your telematic solution, it doesn't really matter which cellular tower, which antenna you're using, or which operator. You just want to make sure that it's constantly and resiliently connected. And the same applies if your telematic solution is now on the Canadian border or also driving in Europe, changing 3, 4, 5, 6 countries in a couple of days of drive. You want to have this global layer of connectivity. The solution offered today by Xyte and Monogoto works in 180 countries and allows you to connect to 550 operators. From your perspective, from the solution perspective, the journey is seamless. It doesn't matter where you are because you'll always be connected.
I think that's a great point, and people might think that I'm not an automotive manufacturer, so what are the chances my devices are going to travel between countries? But the reality is that if you're making a device, you're developing a device, in many cases, or most cases, you don't know where it's going to end. So if you're just developing a display or a food and beverage kiosk, right? And you're shipping it worldwide, but you don't know if it's going to be installed in Germany, in Sweden, in the US, Canada, or Mexico. And the fact that Monogoto supports over 180 countries means that whatever this device is going to land, I don't know if you cover Antarctica or some of the sea lands, but whatever it's going to land, it will instantly be connected to the internet and instantly start reporting back to the cloud. Wonderful, great. So I think those case studies from some of our customers were really great to kind of broaden the opportunities about this new partnership. And maybe to kind of elaborate a little bit more. So once again, the goal with Xyte is to give a full stack solution for device manufacturer for everything they need in a single unified platform. And we see connectivity as a big part of that. So that new partnership between Xyte and Monogoto enable the device manufacturers, the OEMs, to pre-install Monogoto eSIM or SIM cards in their devices. Devices immediately and securely connect to the network once they powered wherever they are, once again, with coverage of 180 different countries. And that enables this OEM to immediately communicate with their devices and offer remote management and monitor for their customers. And then moving on, selling them data plans, developing this additional revenue stream and opportunities for their customers. Itamar, I think we pretty much covered everything. Unless you have anything else to add, I think it's time for some Q&A.
That's great, and I see some questions being written here in the chat. Guys, feel free to continue writing questions. Not sure we'll be able to answer them all. Okay, I'll take the first question. There are many connectivity providers. Why Monogoto and why with Xyte? So I'll take the first part of why Monogoto. There are two things here that are very relevant on the way you do connectivity. Monogoto is a software-defined connectivity cloud, and software-defined is a very crucial key here. As Omer mentioned, when you enter a Tesla, you don't just drive a car, you start an experience. And that experience has a lot of things, a lot of events, and a lot of contextual behavior that you want to react to. Am I in the car, out of the car being charged? So reacting to context is very important. When you have a connectivity player that is software-defined, the same infrastructure of connectivity allows you to participate in these event-driven scenarios. So am I connected or disconnected? Did I switch between networks? Am I on a 4G or 5G or a private network? Is the device logged in or logged out? Do we have the first onboarding? Many of our customers on the first onboarding, they do some sort of campaign management. The first time this car connects to the network, I want to onboard it on my ERP or CRM network. I want to call multiple APIs. I want to start a billing process with my customer or with my vendor. So you want to react to everything with an API language, and that's where the software-defined connectivity really plays. Now, for the second part, why Monogoto with Xyte? Omer, that's for you.
Yeah, I think there are a few benefits. Two of them I mentioned before. First of all, being able to integrate. So I don't know actually how many of the audience knows, but Xyte, we've built into our platform the entire payment processing and gateway. So to make it very easy for our customer, the device manufacturers, to offer new subscription and even consumption and usage based. And we had a great webinar about that about a couple of weeks ago. But consumption and usage based product to their customers based on telemetry. So for example, based on the kilometers or miles that the truck drove and so on. So we do make every effort to make all of that into a single platform, and being able to have the connectivity as part of that Xyte device cloud, I think it's a big thing. And the other thing, being able to offer those data packages and sell them based on the built-in already commerce experience we have in Xyte is once again, it's the easiest way for device manufacturers, I believe, to start offering these subscription services for their customers. Other than that, obviously, getting everything unified, getting one invoice, being able to see everything in one place is a big benefit for the customers as well.
Thank you, Omer. I'll take the next question as well. How does this play in the future of 5G and connected devices? So this is, I think, a very good one, because we all understand what we have today, but the world of connectivity and IoT devices are moving forward very quickly. So one of the things that we're doing at Monogoto is to abstract all the underlying technological aspects of cellular connectivity. As long as you have a modem that supports 5G, you will automatically connect to a 5G network. You don't need to do anything differently in your software or in your firmware. Now, it doesn't matter if it's a 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G network. It also plays with private networks. So if you are deploying a solution within a privately owned infrastructure, let's say your warehouse, your campus, your distribution center, if you have a private 4G or a private 5G network, the same Xyte Monogoto solution will work with this environment as well. So the devices will be able to use the public network while they're on the go, while they're driving, while the truck is moving or the asset is being tracked. And when they go closer to the warehouse, to the facility, they will seamlessly onboard to the private 4G or private 5G network. And that's a great opportunity also to discuss the latest innovation in cellular connectivity, which is non-terrestrial network, the ability to transmit directly from the device to satellite. It's a little bit more, there's less bandwidth and a little bit more expensive, but it allows the developer of the devices to communicate if they have public connectivity, if they have a private 4G or 5G, or directly with the satellite. So if you're out of coverage for 30 minutes, you can make a wise decision to send a heartbeat via satellite. So you can ping the Xyte network, let them know that the device is active, that the device is available, and not suffer from loss of connectivity. This is where the future or the next few years of connectivity are going. And this solution by Xyte and Monogoto allows you to participate in that as well.
That's pretty amazing. I like to see some Xyte bits going to the satellite. Yeah, you know what? If I may, I have one quick question for you, because I'm thinking if I'm a device manufacturer, if I'm an OEM, and maybe many of the folks joined the webinar are, I'm concerned about what will that the impact be for my bill of materials if I'm making a device, and what will be the cost for me for being able to communicate to the cloud. Now I know they dropped dramatically, but if you could give us a sense about that, would be great.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's look at it top down. There are two main components when you look at the bill of material. The first one, you need to have a cellular modem. The second one, you need to have your SIM card or your access to the network. Definitely, as you mentioned, the prices of cellular modems reduced dramatically, but obviously you cannot compare that to a Wi-Fi chip. Definitely, the bill of material is more significant when you're talking about cellular modems, but also the return on investment. So you are putting a little bit more on your bill of material. It really depends if this is a 4G only modem, a 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, if this is a narrowband or Cat-M, or this is high throughput like Cat 1. So anywhere between few dollars, $6, $7, $8, up to dozens of dollars if you're taking the most advanced solution available for the hardware, for the cheap manufacturers like the Qualcomms and the Quicktels. So that's the first thing that you need to add. The second thing is the data bundle, the data connectivity. This is where our partnership really helps because you don't need to have a commitment beforehand. You don't know beforehand when the devices will be online. You need to have a solution that if the devices are offline, you're not paying for the connectivity. You're paying only for the usage consumed and not for heavier bundles. So this is where the Monogoto and Xyte business model is extremely flexible, only paying for the connected devices that are actually active, only paying for data that has been consumed. And I can tell you that we're seeing manufacturers today dropping their connectivity prices for as little as $1.50 per year, just because they're using connectivity wisely, and the ROI that they are getting on a improved user experience and a better connected devices really transforms their product to a much more usable, much more friendly one.
So it's amazing. So I can, let's say I buy the bill of material, it's a one-time thing, and then I buy the data packages for just say about, once again, on commitment for about $1.50 a year, and I'm selling it for 99 a month or something like that, right? It's a very high gross margin. It's a great new revenue stream for my devices. And once again, as we discussed, it's a wonderful way to remove so much friction for my customers and create such a much better customer experience. Wonderful, Itamar. It was a great pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank everybody for joining us today. If you do have any question or like to explore more about the partnership working with Monogoto and Xyte, and together, Itamar and I would be happy to stay in touch. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. It was great hosting you today, and we'll keep innovating for you.
Omer and Xyte team, thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you.
Have
Bye-bye,
a great
everybody.
day. Thank you, everyone.